Hey guys, so we are taking a look at the Nord N20 5G. And I apologize for how long it's been since I've made a video. I actually recently just moved and it has been a lot. It's been very, very busy. So I haven't made any videos in a little bit, but I did want to check this phone out. I was pretty excited for this phone, honestly, when I heard that OnePlus was bringing a budget phone with an AMOLED screen. That's what I was very excited for, because OnePlus has had budget phones in the US, but we always got the ones that weren't quite as good. They didn't have AMOLED screens and they were pretty low end. And I'm thinking of phones like the OnePlus, I was about to say the N20, the N200. The N200 is a lower end phone than the N20, and it's a bit of a bummer to kind of only see really low-end budget phones from OnePlus in the United States, when other countries, getting the Nord series, it was just a bummer. I was hoping that we would get some budget to mid-tier phones that had AMOLED screens, a little bit better processors, better cameras. But it seems like OnePlus was reserving the United States for just getting the flagships. The OnePlus 9 Pro, the OnePlus 10 Pro that recently came out. It seems like that's all we were getting, and we were getting some pretty darn low-end budget phones from OnePlus. But with the Nord coming with an AMOLED screen, I was pretty excited to see what we were going to get here. And just taking a look at the phone right off the bat, it is very nice looking. I would say this is probably the nicest looking budget OnePlus phone that we've gotten in the United States so far, and I think they did a really, really good job. I love the way this phone looks. I think it does look unique. I think they added a really nice design here. It is kind of different. It's not something typical that we've seen from OnePlus before. I think this definitely is different, which I like personally. I'd rather them start to kind of branch out a little bit, especially for their budget phones. And when we're looking at it, it is just a plastic build, nothing too fancy there. But I like it. It does have the flat edges, which a lot of the phones are going for. And overall, it's very light, which I like. As I've said in other videos, I prefer a phone to be lighter, especially a budget phone. So personally for me, looks-wise and feel, I really like it. I think this looks and feels more premium than it actually is, because this phone is coming in at $299, which is actually a pretty good price. Considering a lot of other manufacturers like Moto and some others and Samsung are coming in a little higher, $350, $400, $500 for some of their budget to mid-range phones. So $300 is pretty good. I'm actually pretty pleased with that. But there were some corners that were cut from OnePlus. So to take a look at some of the specs of the phone, like I said, it is a plastic phone overall. We have a 6.43-inch AMOLED display, which I'm very happy to see on here. It is 1080p. We have Android 11. A little bit of a bummer there, but, and I did double check. There is no update to Android 12 just yet, or at least I didn't get one, and I haven't seen anything. We have the Snapdragon 695 5G chipset, which is the same chipset that we see in the Motorola Moto G Stylus 2022 5G. Which is a perfectly fine processor, but again, I think it does come with one big con, which I'll talk about again. We have the Adreno 619, 128 gigs of storage, 6 gigabytes of RAM, and on the back, we have a 64 megapixel camera, 2 megapixel macro, and a 2 megapixel. Now, I'm getting conflicting reports on this. I'm not even sure what it is, whether it's monochrome or a depth sensor. Multiple sites have said different things, but either way, it's kind of a useless sensor in my opinion. So it really doesn't matter all that much. And only 1080p video recording, which I'll talk about more, is kind of a little bit of a bummer. A 16 megapixel selfie camera with 1080p video recording at 30 frames per second. We do have only one speaker on the bottom, which is a little bit of a bummer also there. The USB Type-C port. We do get a headphone jack, which is very nice that they've added that. Again, no front-firing speaker, so there's no dual speakers on this. But I guess, with the price, they had to make some cuts, and that was one of them. Fingerprint scanners in screen. I'll go over that now. I will say This is one of the first budget to mid-range phones where the fingerprint scanner works literally perfectly. I haven't had it not work once. Every single time I put my thumb on it and watch on this video, it's gonna not work. But every single time I put my thumb on it since I've had this phone, I've been using it as my main device for a week. It has worked every single time, 10 out of 10. I'm very, very impressed. It's pretty fast actually too. I honestly, this is faster than the Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro fingerprint scanner. This is more reliable than the Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro fingerprint scanner. So for $299, OnePlus, you did a fantastic job. I think the fingerprint scanner is excellent. And I normally don't like in-screen fingerprint scanners for the reason that I mentioned with the Pixel 6. It's just sometimes they're not very good. And I'd rather have one on the back or on the side. But this one is pretty dang good. I think OnePlus did a perfectly fine job with the fingerprint scanner on this one. Now, looking at just, usability of the phone day to day, I'd say excellent. It feels like OnePlus. It's super snappy. Everything just works. It's easy to use this phone day to day and not feel like you're using a really cheap, budget phone, which unfortunately with some of the offerings from Motorola and Samsung, I haven't felt that way. The Samsung A53 was, as I said in my review, not very good. I was very disappointed with that phone, and it's more expensive than this phone. The OnePlus is a much better phone than the Samsung A53, in my opinion, overall. I think that OnePlus did a great job with making this feel fluid. It feels very nice. There's no complaints here while you're using it day to day. I don't have any major issues that stand out to me to tell you guys. And as I said in the A53 review, I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I didn't like the A53. I'm not being paid by Samsung or anyone else. I buy these phones and review them. I'm going to be honest with you guys. This one runs much more smoothly than the A53. It just is what it is. I think OnePlus does a better job with their budget to mid-range phones right now with making them super, super smooth for the price. Where Samsung is kind of giving you a worse experience on their budget phones to purposely push you towards their flagships, which I think is frustrating. Motorola is somewhere in between. I really like the Moto G Stylus 2022 5G. Wow, is that name a mouthful? I really like that one. It has the same processor that this does, the 695, and it's really, really good. Now, as far as the 6 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, I think that's plenty. I think that's perfectly reasonable for a phone with, coming at a price tag of $299. I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm okay with it. Do I wish there was a little bit more RAM? Sure. But honestly, for me, I haven't had any issues with this phone. I haven't noticed any problems with multitasking or switching between apps. I personally don't game very often, but I would say that, this phone will be okay for gaming, not fantastic. I wouldn't buy this phone for gaming specifically, but it can do it in a pinch. I'm sure you can play Minecraft. May not be the, it's not a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 or anything, but it is a good budget to mid-range processor. I've enjoyed using it. I've had no problem with the specs. As far as the battery life is concerned, I'll show you guys right here. 8 hours and 45 minutes with 20% left. Yeah, this phone has excellent battery life. I've had zero issues with that. I think it's really good. If you're gaming a lot on it, okay, maybe you're not going to hit, 8 or 9 hours. Of course, you're going to drain the battery a lot faster. But if you're doing anything other than gaming, watching YouTube, sending messages, calling, social media, internet browsing, all that kind of stuff, taking pictures and videos, I think you should be able to get somewhere between 7 and 9 hours of screen on time with this phone, which is excellent. Very, very good. I did try my Cricket SIM in this and my Mint Mobile SIM. Both of them have worked, no problem. I had no issues. I know some phones now are not working with Cricket very well. This one works perfectly fine, which is nice to know. And it works great on Mint. I've had excellent signal. I've had no issues there. When we look at the speaker quality, I'll try to show you guys here. Let's go to my channel, which I always seem to misspell on these videos. And let's go to do a speaker test. bottom firing. No top firing speaker. Okay, so I think the speaker is good for a bottom firing speaker. I think it actually gets pretty loud. It doesn't sound too tinny or anything. I think it's an okay speaker. You know, I just wish that there was a speaker on the front. I wish it was dual speaker. I think at $300 we should have got dual speakers. But for being a bottom firing speaker, perfectly fine for phone calls, perfectly fine for watching videos. Just not quite as good as a dual firing on some of the other phones, like what Pixel offers and stuff like that. But hey, you know, at $299, that's one area that OnePlus decided to cut. They're kind of going the Motorola route of taking out a front firing speaker. Now, when we look at one other area that I think is kind of a miss, unfortunately, it is the camera. If we go in here, there is a 64 megapixel camera, pretty much is your only camera. I know there's two others. One might be a depth or a monochrome. I still cannot figure out what it is. Please let me know below in the comments which one it is. Multiple different sites have said different things. And again, it doesn't really matter too much to me because I think it's useless. But if we go in and look at some of the options, you have time-lapse, pano, slow-mo. Extra HD was interesting. I guess it's supposed to be like a super resolution mode. I tried it. It didn't really do much. The macro camera on here is absolutely horrible. The worst macro camera I've ever used on any phone, period. It should not even be on this phone. Honestly, there should just be one camera. The rest are just so useless. And I love macro cameras. I love good macro cameras. This is terrible. Doesn't have autofocus. It's 2 megapixels. And it takes some of the worst shots I've ever seen. You will not use them. And you can't even get very close in the macro mode. That's the other really weird part to me, is that when you actually like you can't get as close as some of the other phones do. It's just, I'm trying to find like where it's actually in focus. Yeah, you can't really tell in video, but it's just, like, no matter where I seem to put it, it looks kind of blurry. It just is a really bad macro camera, which is a bummer. You know, you do have the portrait mode, which works fine. The regular photo mode is fine. You know, you can jump into 2x, 5x, and then a max of 6x. It is a little weird that when you hit this, it jumps to 5x and not the 6x. I do find that a bit odd because you can zoom in just a little bit further. So that's a little weird, but yeah, that's the maximum zoom. Again, gonna be digital zoom. It's not good at zooming. Digital zoom never really looks all that great. But I think the main snaps from the 64 megapixel camera are just okay. I think they're perfectly fine for the price of this phone. Dynamic range is okay. It's not fantastic. It does blow out some you know, bright shots, unfortunately. It tries to balance it out. It's not super saturated like Samsung's photos, but it is a little saturated. They do try to add a little bit of punch. You know, one of the biggest things that I think is unfortunate with this phone is that, yes, there's a 64 megapixel camera, but there's no ultra wide. You know, I understand there not being a telephoto, but no ultra wide really is a bummer. You know, you can't pinch in any further to go to a 0.5, which I just think that was a mistake. I think most people want an ultra wide, especially if you're not getting a telephoto. It's just you kind of offered neither, and you kind of tricked people into thinking there's all these cameras when in reality the macro is terrible and the depth or monochrome sensor is just bad. It's not bad, but it's useless. That's not something I want. I'd rather just have a telephoto or an ultra wide on there. You know, I don't know. It's kind of a gimmick showing 3 cameras. It's really just one that you're going to use. Now, when you go to video, unfortunately, it is 1080p or 720p. The video is not very good. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Even in daylight with sunshine, not very good video. I was very disappointed by that. You know, it is what it is. The Snapdragon 695 apparently can't do 4K video recording. So any manufacturer who chooses that chip, they're just tossing out 4K video recordings. So just remember that when you're buying the phone, it only goes up to 1080p. There is a night mode. It does do a little bit. The night mode does help a bit. It's not the best night mode I've ever used. Certainly nothing close to like a Pixel 4a or I even think Samsung has a bit of a better night mode. I think the Samsung Galaxy A53 has a better overall camera than this. I think the Moto G Stylus 2022 5G has a better camera than this. That is the shortcoming of this phone, in my opinion, is the camera. I can get over the no 4K if the 1080p was good. It's not. I could get over no ultra wide or telephoto or anything if the main lens and the macro were good. The macro is terrible and the main lens is okay. I could get over no front firing speaker and just having a bottom firing speaker. But again, the camera is just, that's one area where I think they should have done better and they didn't. It's super unfortunate. I will show you guys the shutter speed here. So pretty good. I mean, it's not slow. It takes the picture pretty quickly. And again, it's not a horrible 64 megapixel camera. It's just not the best I've ever used in this budget range. I think a lot of other manufacturers have done better. It does have the full 64 megapixel mode, but to be honest with you guys, I'll show you the shots. The 64 megapixel mode made absolutely no difference in detail, which is the whole point of the mode. So that was kind of a bummer. I will say going into 2X and using that as kind of like a mock macro mode was much better than the actual macro camera, in my opinion. I just was getting better pictures cropped in 2 times with the 64 megapixel camera than I was with the dedicated macro camera at 2 megapixels, which was absolutely horrible. So I'll show you guys some of the samples now and you can decide for yourselves what you think. This is a test video, the Nord N20. So guys, as you can see, I think it takes decent pictures in certain lighting. You definitely want it to be daytime. I personally wouldn't go, super low light with this. I don't think it's very good. I wouldn't digitally zoom. I don't think it's very good. I mean, 2 times is fine. 2 times digital zoom was okay. Anything beyond that, I wouldn't even do it. As far as, looking at the, the detail on the camera, it's okay. The 64 megapixel shots, I think, were actually very disappointing. I just don't think that they were very good. This one just actually, honestly, look how blurry this is. Just kind of a bummer. Like, it was actually, yeah, this is blurry. That one has some detail. I don't know. It just didn't take the best shot. I was expecting a better camera. I really was. It's not terrible. It's just not as good, like I said, as some of the ones from Motorola and Samsung, which was kind of a bummer. It's just okay. I think it's totally passable. And if you don't care about the camera that much, I think you're going to be totally happy with this camera. If you're not, trying to get every camera mode in the world and you want the 108 megapixels and the 100 times zoom like Samsung offers on their flagships, like if you're not looking for all that, you just literally need a phone where you can just point and shoot. This one's perfectly fine. It'll, you can post to social media, you can send photos to family and friends. It's perfectly fine. I just wouldn't zoom in too much. and I wouldn't use it in too much of challenging situations, in my opinion. It's just okay, and it's probably the weakest point of this phone. So going over the phone really quickly, build quality, look and feel, I really like it. I really like it for $299. I think this is a cool looking phone. I think OnePlus did a very good job with the N20 5G. I feel like if I say Nord, people are going to get confused and think I'm talking about a different phone. It is the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, but I don't know. I feel like most people are going to know this as the N20 5G, not to be confused with other Nord phones that are in other areas of the world that we don't get. Yeah, so as far as build quality, good. The screen, very nice. It's AMOLED. It looks really nice. I really like it. It is not a high refresh rate screen, which is a bit of a bummer, but honestly, with how smooth this phone is, I don't really mind all that much. As you can see, I'll show you in here, there is no high refresh rate option to change it. You can change to vivid or gentle. I would keep it on vivid because I think it looks nicer. You can change the color temperature and the lighter dark mode. I do feel like they have a dark dimming on the wallpaper when you choose the dark mode, which I don't like, and I don't know how to turn it off. So if you guys know a way to stop it from dimming the wallpaper in the dark mode, let me know, but I can't find it. And it just seems to do that automatically. When I go to light mode, the wallpaper is much brighter. So I don't fully understand that. If anyone knows how to change that, please let me know. I couldn't figure it out. The screen though, very nice. AMOLED, super nice viewing angles. It's great. I have no complaints there. I'm so glad they put an AMOLED screen in this. Using the phone, excellent. I think it's really, really good. I think OnePlus did a great job. Everyone will be happy using this phone at $299. This is a really smooth phone, even though it's only 60 hertz. As far as the battery life, excellent. Excellent. 7 to 9 hours, I think you should have no problem. If you're gaming and stuff, might be a little bit less, maybe 5 to 6 hours or 4 to 5 hours if you're gaming, a little bit more on it. But if you're just using it for normal day-to-day things, I think you'll have no problem getting 7 to 9 hours of screen on time like I did. As far as connectivity, signal, everything's fine, works with Android Auto. I've had no issues. Again, no front-firing speaker, only a bottom, but it's a decent bottom-firing speaker. I actually do like it. As far as the camera, again, that is the weakest point of the phone, in my opinion, as I showed you guys. I think it could have been better. It's not terrible, but it definitely could have been better. So for me, this phone is worth it. I think it is definitely worth it if you're looking for a budget phone and your price range is around that $200 to $300 or $200 to $350, somewhere in there. I think this is a really solid phone. I definitely recommend it. I've been very happy with it. Like, it's just a very nice phone to use. Day to day, it's awesome. I would rather have this phone than the Samsung A53. But if I had to choose between this and the Moto G Stylus 2022 5G, I would take the Moto G just for the camera. The Moto G has a worse screen than this. It's IPS, it's not AMOLED, but I just like the camera so much on the Moto G Stylus 2022 5G and the stylus support. I just enjoyed using that phone more, and I thought it had a better still photo camera and video camera on it, in my opinion. This one was a little bit behind. So while I do think this is probably a better overall phone just because of the screen quality, and the AMOLED screen on here is beautiful, personally, I would take the Moto over this, but I would take this over the Samsung A53 for sure. This is a solid phone, and I think OnePlus is moving in the right direction, and I hope to see more from them in the United States, because a lot of other countries are getting some cool mid-range phones from them, but I hope they bring more to the United States, because these are the types of phones that I really enjoy using and testing out, because I think they bring a lot for the money. For $299, this is a great phone. Just don't expect a lot from the camera. That is all I will say. All right, guys, that's about it. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. Please subscribe to the channel as always, and I'll see you guys in the next one.